Well, it's time for Oh, the Places You Will Go travel book panel at the Book Fest Fall 2024. Now, if you love traveling, if you love reading about traveling, if you love listening to traveling, and even just watching other people travel, we have assembled some of the best travel authors in the world right here today for this panel. You are going to love hearing about their journeys, why they started traveling, what they hope other people will get out of their travels. And so, without further ado, I want to get right into it. First, let's talk about myself. I'm an Emmy award-winning travel journalist. I have been that way for about 20 years, but also by night, I want to say that I love traveling. I was bitten by the travel bug many years ago, and I've traveled to over 50 countries. I haven't written a book yet, but I do love watching others talk about their travel. So now I'd like to introduce my panelists. First up, we have Linda Ballou. Linda is the author of Los Angeles in Paradise, Great Trips for Free, and the most recent Los Angeles Unleashed Stories from the Heart. She hosts a podcast and contributes to numerous magazines. Next up, we have Lisa Niver. Lisa is an award-winning travel expert who has explored more than 102 countries on 6 continents. Her memoir, Bravish, One Breakup, 6 Continents, and Feeling Fearless After 50 has inspired millions of people to travel the world. And lastly, we have Jen Ruiz. Jen is an award-winning lawyer turned travel writer. She's the author of 12 Trips in 12 Months, a 3-time TEDx speaker, and has been featured as a travel expert in the Washington Post, the Huffington Post, ABC News, and many more. So as you can see, we have quite the panelists of experience when it comes to traveling. The first question I want to ask you, ladies, is for everyone. Why and when did you all develop a passion for globetrotting? And first, I'll throw that to you, Linda.
Well, I'm in my book, Los Angeles Unleashed. The first story is about my first flight when I was 14, which I wasn't planning on going on, with a bush pilot and a float plane through a storm. Wow. And then once we landed and I got onto a jet, by then I was so adrenaline pumped and so excited about travel that I'm afraid it was in my genes at an early time, and it was a precursor to where my life was going to go. But I didn't know it at the time. But yeah, it started that way.
Wow. And how about you, Jen?
I think for me, it started pretty early on. My mom was a teacher, and so we always found travel experiences nearby, right? I grew up in Pennsylvania, so we would go to Amish country and see how they lived, and we would go to the second tallest bridge in the state, or the Frank Lloyd Wright House, Falling Water. So I think from early on, I really discovered that you can find that spirit of travel close to home, and that really it's about putting yourself outside of your comfort zone and doing something different.
Yeah, I love hearing that. Lisa?
For me, my family is a whole family of travelers. And when my dad was in the military, my sister was born on the base in Georgia. And that was my parents' first winter without snow. So they decided to move to California, where I grew up. But we were always traveling back and forth to see family and skiing. My dad loves skiing. I always say he loves skiing more than breathing, but he says that's not true. Breathing's important.
Yeah, for sure. As you ladies know, you guys are veteran travelers, that travel is dynamic and it changes, it's ever evolving. And so I'd love for you guys to talk about how your travel journeys have changed over the years. Any one of you can speak up to that first.
Well, I started traveling early on. I'm an adventure junkie. I'm from Alaska, so I love the outdoors, and I'm centered in nature. And so travel allowed me to experience the most beautiful places on the planet is what I seek out. And a lot of my adventures, river rafting, horseback riding, kayaking, are armchair travel for a lot of people. Right. So as I've gotten older, I'm not doing as athletic types of journeys, but I just came back from Costa Rica, and I traveled with Overseas Adventure Travel, which is a company that gears for people over 55. So there's no thinking required. And, they take you to local people. They introduce you to people living in the country. And this is something that I think is very important, to be a traveler and not just a tourist. Now that's an old theme, but I really try to do that, be a traveler.
How about you, Lisa? How has your travel evolved?
My travel has evolved. I got to travel when I was studying. I spent a semester in college in Israel, and that really led me to want to live more places. And so after college, I worked for Club Med, and I worked on cruise ships for 7 years. So my traveling was just my entire life. I was 100% traveling and traveling for work, which was amazing. That fed my love of scuba diving. And I'm actually right now, you're finding me in Park City. I live in California, but the last time I was here, Jen and I were here speaking about our books at the Women in Travel Summit.
Oh, yeah, I'm a part of that as well. What a small world. Okay, interesting. Yeah. What about you, Jen?
So for me, when I started traveling, it was as a young attorney, and I was really doing so on a budget, trying to make my money stretch. I was working at a nonprofit law firm when I took my 12 trips in 12 months challenge. And now in my mid-30s, I've been able to start splurging on really fun experiences and things that I think are worthwhile. So for instance, I just had a 35th birthday trip where 35th? 36. I think I'm 36 now. They start to blend together. But I just had a birthday trip where I went to Giraffe Manor in Kenya, right, where I got to feed the giraffes from my balcony in the morning. And it was just such a unique experience. And after that, I went gorilla trekking in Rwanda. And these are luxurious experiences that I felt like I was comfortable splurging on. And so I'm getting to the stage in my life where travel can include these really once in a lifetime bucket list things. And I'm at a really happy medium where I'm still traveling solo, but I'm making more money now that I can afford to be doing these experiences. And I have, the mobility and the energy to do some of these things, because gorilla trekking was definitely a journey. And that's how it's evolved in the point that I'm at now.
Wow. You all have written successful travel books, which is a huge feat. I'd love for each of you to talk to me about what was the most challenging thing about writing a book, and what was the most rewarding thing about writing a book. What about you, Linda?
Well, I'm a writer. Okay, so I've been writing all my life, and I've started journaling when I was a young girl. And before I became a travel writer per se, I had written novels. So for me, the joy is in the writing. And I, in my book, Get Great Trips, my process is getting those wonderful trips that Jen can afford that maybe I can't, So I get hosted. That's what my payment is with the articles. But for each trip, I write articles for my host, and I do a personal essay for myself. And the personal essay goes into my books. The personal essay is, how was that trip transformational? What shackles fell from my eyes? What did I learn about that culture that I didn't realize? Maybe there were some environmental issues that I talk about in sidebars. And so, I just, travel writing puts together everything I love, travel and writing, and meeting, the excitement, the adventure of being out there in the world,
Yeah. Do you ever get writer's block?
Never. I have time to write everything I need to write. I regret that when I traveled, one of the questions you asked was what to tell a young writer, someone who wants to become journal. Because I did this fabulous trip sailing through the British Virgin Islands on this historical vessel. And I didn't take notes at the time. Now I can't write about it. It's not fresh. I really am sorry that I wasn't paying more attention then, so journal. Journal.
Yeah. Jen, did you have any kind of challenging or rewarding parts, or was it just all a reward to write your latest memoir?
Yeah, I will just quickly note, Linda, I also get hosted on trips. So that helps a lot with some of the more luxurious experiences, but definitely just being somebody that's a young professional and doesn't have that obligation of having to pay for, children, pets, things like that has been the pro that I find is, because I do want those things, the pro that I find is that I can invest in myself. And this book was a big investment of time, energy, effort. So definitely was challenging to sell a travel memoir in the middle of a pandemic. I sold it in 2020. So at the time, people didn't really see the vision for it because travel had stopped. On top of that, I had self-published 5 books ahead of time. So I really had to differentiate what was different about this book that would merit a publishing company getting involved. And so really focusing on that different genre, the fact that it was a memoir as opposed to traditional informational nonfiction that I had shared before. And then also the potential for possible, film or TV adaptations and how I wanted a team to help me with that. And so that was something that I was able to get a book deal, but it felt like it was challenging for me more so than, other people that I've seen get a deal and get published within a 2-year period. It took me, 4 years. And I think that it's happened at the time that it was supposed to, at the right time for me. And I'm so happy with my publishing company, and I'm really happy with how things have turned out. But it has taken some patience and some faith in believing that I'm on the right path.
Wow. Lisa, I was going to ask you too, I know that, you are a highly decorated writer as well, but I'm wondering, do you ever get roadblock, writer's block, or were there any challenges in writing anything? Because I think when people see that you're highly decorated or people have written a lot of books, they just think these people were born to write. They never get writer's block at all. And sometimes that's not the case.
Yes. Okay. Well, first of all, I have to say I'm so happy to be back this year at Book Fest. When I came last year, my book was out for like 3 minutes. So this month in September 2024, it's the 1-year anniversary of my book. So I'm so excited. And were there challenges? Yes. So I was traveling full time as a travel journalist, and then COVID, global pandemic, I didn't travel at all. And that's when I wrote my book. And like Jen, I sold my memoir to a traditional publishing house during COVID. So I found an agent, and it's been an amazing experience. There were plenty of challenges because my book starts with the most horrible part of my life. I had a terrible end to my marriage, and I did 50 challenges before I turned 50 to reinvent myself. So writing about the trauma and the drama, I literally used to sit at my desk and write until I was pretty sure I was going to throw up. And then I lay on the floor. And so it was very, very challenging, but I didn't have writer's block. The block was, I didn't want to do it. It was really hard.
Yeah.
So for me, it was very cathartic. And along the way, I had a lot of friends tell me like, maybe this project's just too hard for you. But even if it had never gotten published, it was worth writing it for me.
Yeah. Great. Jen, I want to ask you, your memoir just came out a couple of months ago. And usually when someone has a book that they're dropping, they have to do a lot of promotion on legacy media outlets, whether it's newspapers, magazines, TV, radio programs, or whatnot. And that's a job in itself. And you also have a huge following with your social media. So I'm wondering, how do you balance those two things? Because nowadays you see a lot of people that kind of throw everything into only promoting their travel brand on social media and really increasing that following, or they tend to be more online writers or newspaper writers and just focus on that. You're kind of trying to do both. And I'm wondering how you manage to balance that.
I'm trying to do all of the things because I've seen how quickly any one of the things can be taken away from me. I've had, my TikTok account, that's my biggest account, and that's been completely banned before. I've had my Facebook hacked. I've had everything taken away, my blog traffic completely decimated. So because of that, I do think that I grow slower because I'm trying to grow so many avenues at once, because I like to know if any one of these avenues disappears, I am not SOL. Because again, it's just me, right? So I have to be a little bit smart about how I do things. And so it has been challenging this summer. I did 24 broadcast TV appearances along with 18 stops on a book tour across the country and Puerto Rico, 3 conferences that I spoke at, one that I was a keynote at, and 4 press trips with destinations. So in between all of this, I am, doing whitewater rafting and having some mishaps in there where I ended up looking like a synchronized swimmer with my feet in the air as I'm going head first. And so this is all in between, events and everything that has to keep it going. So I'm going to be honest that I have been just on go mode because, like you said, there is that time period where that traditional media cares about you and you are newsworthy.
Right.
So you can always come in when there's a story that's relevant to you or your book, but the immediate release of your book and just being a new release in general for about the 3 months after gives you that time period where you can pitch these outlets. I did work with a publicity team to maximize this. So we had, 15 in-studio appearances, 11 of them national. We were on Yahoo Finance. We've been on a ton of different places, and it has been a lot. And in that, my social media has struggled. Because I felt like it's been on a free fall. It's just now started to stop the free fall. And I'm just like, and other places are growing. Like my Instagram was growing while my TikTok was falling, and my threads were growing, and I was getting like a threads bonus. So it's been a lot, and you just got to keep up with it. And that's again why I surf these waves of ups and downs, and I don't put anything into one basket, because I feel like you never know.
Yeah, well, you kind of take it like an investor. You know what I mean? Like no one investor is going to invest in only one stock. You're going to diversify all of your assets. You're going to diversify because of the market. That's the best way to kind of get ahead. And you're kind of taking it that way when you're talking about your career.
So I met Jen at Zibby's, which is a local bookstore here, and her energy, she's so high energy. I'm telling you, she makes me tired just listening to her. Here's what I do. Okay. I believe in standing on other people's shoulders. I am not going to be on social media. I am on Facebook, but hey, that's the older group. That's my demographic. I have a column on the National Association of Baby Boomer Women. Why? That's the largest traveling demographic. That's what the companies want to have exposure to, that group. So you asked how I've changed. In the beginning, I would active. New Zealand was one of my first trips, and that was a 35 to 45-year-old crowd, very, very active. But I've evolved into a niche of boomer women, and the Boomer in Chief loves me. And now my pieces are syndicated to 89 family magazines.
That's a lot.
So she does the work. I send her the text, the images. She creates the article, and she shares it. And so the same thing with my podcast. I love doing my podcast because I don't have to do anything. My host does it. My host does everything for me. She's wonderful. She, does all of the social networking. She's very good at it. She puts it on all the platforms. And I have the fun of just being interviewed. And she does all the work. No, what could be better, Well,
that's what I was going to ask. That was my next question for you, Linda, is that you've been writing forever. You got books, you got your own column.
Right.
You got a successful career doing that. So what made you want to expand your brand and do podcasting?
Because I want to spend my time doing what I love, which is travel and writing. I don't want to be creating a lot of content for a gluttonous internet.
Right.
It's not where I want to spend my time. So this way I have fun. I take a story out of one of my books, and I give the backstory, stuff that wasn't included. Why was it important to me? Was there something there that I wanted to say but couldn't because it was politically incorrect?
Right.
And I like to do a little 2-minute reading so people get a sample of my writing. And it's really fun for me to relive these experiences. And to read my own writing, like you say, I've been doing this a while. Yeah. So my next podcast is about the San Juan Skyway, which was one of my very first travel trips. But the story is about seeing the world through new eyes. And I think that's what travel is all about. And on the train trip that I took, this woman, she was 64 years old, and she had taken the trip when she was 5. With her father, and subsequently over the years she went legally blind, and she just had a laser operation that gave her vision back, and that's why she was on this train. And she and I were just giggling all over ourselves. We were so excited just to be there and seeing the beauty. So these stories that I've written were important to me, and bringing them back in the podcast is really fun, and I think very worthwhile.
Yeah, and you have a great voice for it too, of course. Lisa, I want to get into this. I was reading your bio, and I'll be honest. I'm a journalist by day, but I love to travel. I love to globetrot. I've only been to I think I'm at country 60 now.
Yep.
So I've only been to 60 countries. But before the pandemic, I always said I would love, love, love to be able to travel to 100 countries and join the Century Club, which is a club that's designated for people who have at least been to 100 countries or destinations. You qualify for that. You're one of the few females that actually qualify for that. So first of all, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
You've been to, I think, is it 102 now or maybe more? Have you been to 102 or is it a little bit more?
Well, I have been to 102 countries, but on the Traveler's Century count, I have many, many more than 100. So the Traveler's Century Club has a counting process that if the place is geographically, ethnographically, or I think it's politically separate, it counts extra. So I have quite a bit more in their count, but I count more in a UN counting. But I've been
amazing.
Thank you. I've been very fortunate that, like I said at the beginning, I worked for Club Med and then on cruise ships. So literally I went to sleep and in the morning my house was somewhere else. So that
helps.
And they paid me quite well. And I worked with the team and I got to do a lot of incredible adventures. I mainly went to sea literally because of my love for scuba diving.
Right.
And there's a lot of scuba diving in my book, part of my 50 adventures before I turned 50. But, it's the thing for me is, like Linda said, it's being able to connect with the people, see with new eyes. And I'm so excited. Yesterday I was hiking here in Park City, and later this month I'll be in Ireland. It's been amazing.
Wow.
And my favorite thing, though, I'm wearing my polar bear earrings for you because I just went on a walking safari with the polar bears in Canada.
Oh my God. How was that?
It's magical. I mean, a lot of people desire to travel to see animals. And I've been on safari in Africa, which is amazing. We saw the big five, but I was in a safari vehicle. So this trip being in Canada with Churchill Wild, you're literally walking with at a safe distance with 3 guides following the instructions. But we took incredible pictures, and I had been with them at Nanook Lodge in 2018, but this time I was at Seal River Lodge, and not only did we see the polar bears, but we were out on Zodiac boats, and we literally saw more than 1,000 beluga whales. That was amazing. I couldn't stop filming. I was like,
that's I've never had anything like that happen at all. That's amazing. That sounds like a trip that everybody should take at least once in their lifetime.
Well, I have to pitch Alaska, where I'm from. And I haven't been to 100 countries. I have sought out the most beautiful places on the planet. And one of the things that I did was I rafted in a rubber raft from the Yukon down to the Gulf of Alaska. It's a 125-mile run through the last and wildest remote wilderness in the North America, crossing international borders. Part of it's in Canada. But we were out there, walking on glaciers and bear tracks in our camp, seeing many bears, many moose, many eagles, the wildlife. And, I'm centered in nature. Now, this kind of a trip is not for everybody because it is dangerous. There are no helicopters, folks. There is no internet. If you go into the water, you will die. So here's the thing, people, like I say, a lot of my stories are armchair travel. But I feel so privileged to have been in these places. One of my bucket lists was Patagonia, Torres del Paines. Fantastically beautiful, incredibly magical and terribly remote and dangerous. Windy. It
sounds...
but well worth going for me. So like I say, a lot of my travel is not for everyone. I did do a summer session when I was younger in London. I have had some, experiences in Europe and toured there a couple of times, but I didn't write about any of those experiences. Like I say, not all is armchair travel. My podcast I just did, Confessions of a River Rat.
Right.
Starts with the American River, which any family can take with their kids, and goes all the way up to the Tachincini, which is the river I described. But like the Grand Canyon, rafting the Grand Canyon is, I think, a life-changing experience, and anyone can do it if they want to.
Right. Lisa, I want to touch back on the fact that you've traveled a lot on sea and land, which you're very fortunate to do that, But before you did all that, you were a teacher. So I'm wondering how that impacts your travels, just being a teacher. A lot of people don't have that kind of experience as they go into their travel odyssey.
Well, one of the things that happened was I was teaching, and then I don't know where the ambulance siren is. That's not here.
Oh,
hold on, I'm gonna start again.
Not here.
Yeah.
So for me, with the teaching, I taught science. And so when I was teaching in summer break and all the holidays, I would be traveling. And I think one of the things about my YouTube videos, and I also have a podcast, which actually today got its 50th country watching.
Hey.
So I think one of the things about how I interview and how I am in a place is about sharing what's educational about it. But the other thing about teaching science is a lot of times when I started a new unit, my students and I would talk about who cares? Like, who cares about rocks? And we ended up doing a unit where we talked about minerals that were in conflict in parts of Africa. And at the time, Obama was president, and we wrote to the White House and we said what we had learned and what we thought. And they wrote us back a nice letter, as they do. And it was just an interesting experience for my students that things in the environment impact us and places that we travel and where do minerals come from. And so I love to always have maps as much as possible when I'm filming or with the podcast or with my writing, because I think people are confused with where is that place and why is that place in conflict and why is it important? So for me, I love teaching. I still teach sometimes.
Really? You have time?
I teach sometimes on set. I work for Nickelodeon and Paramount. And so I was in Canada a couple summers ago and we filmed in Toronto and Calgary. It's thriving places to film. Besides, I'm in Los Angeles, so we film there also.
Okay, got it. Yeah. I'm wondering, since you guys have been to so many countries, especially you, Lisa, are there any places, destinations that any of you guys still have on your travel bucket list?
Yes. Absolutely.
Oh, really?
Are you kidding? I have to live long enough to get to them,
Really? What's on your travel bucket list, Jen?
I'd love to see the salt flats in Belize. I travel for weird reasons. Like I went to Japan because I wanted to wear a onesie and ride a go-kart around the streets of Tokyo and eat cotton candy bigger than my face. So I find things that I want to do and then I go do them. And so in Belize, I want to go to the salt flats because I want it to look like a toy T-Rex is eating me, or like I'm walking into a Pringles can with the different effects that you have of the salt flats. It makes it look like things are bigger than they are. So I want to take those fun pictures. I'd also like to see the monarch migration while I'm there in Mexico, because all of this happens around January, February. These are seasonal things. You can't just do them at any time. The deepest pool in Dubai is on my list. So I have a couple of things on my list. Yeah.
Great. What about you, Linda? You still have any destination?
Absolutely. Are you kidding? Yeah, no, but I'm doing a lot of domestic travel now within the United States. Right now, next week, I'm going to Santa Fe, which is the oldest capital in the United States. And I'm very much interested in the indigenous peoples. They have the largest pueblo there. And also I'd like to do Canyon de Chelly, which is on the Navajo Nation. So I'm interested in that, but I would love to take the Oats trip up the Nile. I haven't been there, and that trip sounds really wonderful. I've been to Africa, but I went to Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Zambia, which was incredible. But I haven't done Tanzania and Zanzibar, which I'd like to do. And when I was down in Argentina, I didn't go to Iguazu Falls, which I really regret. I should have gone when I had the chance. I did get to see Victoria Falls, but Iguazu is supposed to be the most spectacular waterfall in the world. So I'd like to see it. There's tons of things I'd love to do and see still,
What about you? At least I can't imagine there's still a destination you haven't been to that you would like to go to.
So many places on my list.
Yeah.
And I like to go back.
What's left? What's left?
In Southeast Asia, I have not yet been to Bhutan. That's big on my list.
Oh, okay.
And I've been almost everywhere in South America, but somehow I missed the biggest country of Brazil.
Oh, yes.
And
that's a huge country.
I feel like I froze. Did we freeze? Someone froze.
You still have a couple of I was interested too. Do you guys have like a preference in terms of places that you'd rather go to that are either beach, coastal, or more inland hiking areas? Because I know people sometimes will say, I love traveling, but I like to be near the water no matter where I go. And then I have some people that say, look, I like being in the city, the urban, the grind of it all. And I'm wondering if you guys have preferences when it comes to that.
I've got to get to the Cook Islands before I die. For God's sake, the Cook Islands. I really want to go to.
Okay.
No? So, I've been to Hawaii many times, and there's a flight that now they have a nonstop to Hawaii that goes to the Cooks. A stop in Hawaii. So, and Fiji is just across the way. So, there's just a ton of gorgeous places I want to see, and the outdoors experience is what I love. And in my Lost Angel in Paradise book, I take people on hikes up the California coast. I'm a lost angel, 17 million other angels here in LA. And my book takes people to my favorite day hikes and sweatband friendly eatery on the beach, stuff like that. So yeah, if you like the hike and you like the beach, you might like my book.
What about you guys? I went
away, but I'm back. Did you lose?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think I lost you. Did you hear me when I was talking about Brazil and Bhutan?
Yes. I said
I got lost. Sorry.
No, I heard all of it. I was just wanting to ask if you guys had more of a preference in terms of the vacation spots that you travel to. Do you prefer to be in cities only or places that are near the water all the time?
Near the water.
Sorry, my Wi-Fi went out for a minute, but I was telling you I really want to go to Bhutan and Brazil, and my last continent is Antarctica. So some of the things I like the most are the wide open spaces, like seeing the polar bears. And I'm wearing my Alaska necklace for you, Linda.
Oh, wow.
Got that in Alaska. I love the vast open places like Mongolia, but also Jen inspired me. I have not yet been to Easter Island. I loved her pictures.
Sounds like an amazing place. What about you, Jen? Do you have a preference? Be by the water or kind of inland in a city?
I do not have a preference. I go by experiences that I'm going to have when I get there. That's really how I pick a destination. So I've been, snowboarding or sandboarding in the desert in Qatar. I've been to the beach everywhere and all over the Caribbean. I'm from the Caribbean. And so I'm familiar with beach destinations. I've done, I just did a 2-week Eastern Europe river cruise, where we were all over places in Eastern Europe that maybe a lot of people don't get to see or visit very often. So it doesn't matter to me where I go. It matters more what I'm doing when I get there. And there's usually an experience or a reason that I'm going, because there's something there that I want to see or do. And I'll do that all over the world. I do tend to avoid colder areas.
I'm guilty.
Yeah.
Guilty of that. I don't like the cold either.
Would maybe make the exception for the polar bears because Lisa's pictures did look amazing. Would maybe make the exception for like an ice cave. But other than that, again, I'm going to do that thing and then I'm leaving. The ice castles that I've seen all over Canada that they have in the winter, where they set up these amazing ice castles that you can go into. Love to go and see it. And then leave. So that would be, I go for the things that I want to do, but yeah, I would definitely avoid lingering in cold areas wherever possible.
I don't blame you.
I love the tropics.
I'm a TV correspondent, been that way, as you guys know, for a long time. I initially was in news and I kind of switched to entertainment. And so now I cover the world of entertainment, and there are so many TV shows and even movies that kind of have their whole theme around travel. I don't know if you've seen The White Lotus. A lot of people have traveled places because they've seen the Game of Thrones. And I'm wondering to you guys, is there a TV show or a film that inspired you to travel to a certain destination?
Oh, I do these travels all the time because I post on social media and these things do really well. So I just came back from a Bridgerton filming site in Vienna.
Love Bridgerton.
While I was there in Romania, I saw the filming site for Wednesday, the Nevermore Castle, where that's filmed. I go to Harry Potter sites all over the world. I rode the real life Hogwarts Express in Scotland just for that. So these things do really well. Dune, the desert in Jordan, the Wadi Rum Desert is where Dune
Very
was
popular.
filmed. So I go for that reason, because something was filmed there, and I go to share the footage from there with my social media following.
No, you're absolutely right. The algorithm shows that. I remember when I went to Malta and I put a couple places that they used the Game of Thrones for there.
Yeah.
That did amazingly well.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right when you're talking about just kind of documenting that and sharing those places with your audience, because everybody who's watching television, pretty much the same shows all over the world.
Well, I'm enjoying the series Dark Winds, which is very popular now on Netflix. And of course, it's set in Monument Valley on the Navajo Nation. So part of when I go to Santa Fe, that's one thing I would say to people who want to be travel writers is do research before you go, so you don't miss what's there, so the significance of what it is you're looking at. So a lot of people just go someplace and they don't prepare themselves to have a full experience.
Right.
I would just say that to people who want to be travel writers.
Right. Lisa, I know you being on a ship. Have you ever wanted to go to a destination just because you saw it in a movie or a TV series and wanted to check it out?
Well, I think maybe my whole career is because every Saturday night growing up, I was watching The Love Boat. I wanted to be on board. They said, come with us. And so I did. Literally, I worked for Princess Cruises.
Right. They have, and I don't know if you know, but ABC has a new show that's coming out. I don't know when it's coming, maybe next year sometime, where the whole premise is based on a ship. So it's just kind of follow kind of like the members of the ship and how they keep it going. It's going to be interesting. So I thought about you when I was reading your bio and about that. And I wonder if it'll have some real life experiences from people who have done the things you've done.
It's, what I'm still in touch with Princess Cruises. This necklace that I have from Alaska was when I was on the Majestic. I'm going later this year with some of my friends that we used to work together. We're going on a cruise together. Oddly on the California coast where I live, but that's where we're going. So I do love cruising. I think it gives people, I always recommend it for intergenerational groups, that it's very easy. Even my own family, when I was working, they would come with me. One person in the Caribbean, one person could go golfing. I can go scuba diving. Someone's on the beach, but you can all have dinner together. So I think sometimes cruising gets a bad rap, but I love it. And I always recommend it.
Right. Can I just say something about the movie business?
Yes.
Jason Momoa is coming out, I believe, hopefully in early 25, Chief of War, which is, he's Hawaiian and he's doing the Hawaiian story, the ancient Hawaiian story. Minnie and I've written a book, Wainani, A Voice from Old Hawaii. So I'm very eager to see what he does with it. I mean, we researched heavily and went to Hawaii many, many times and all the sacred places to have the details for my book. So I'm very excited to see what he does. Of course, many, many films in Hawaii on the North Shore where I live, Valley High and Descendants and a few others, many others. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what Jason does with Hawaii.
Yeah.
Apple TV, I think it's on, Chief of War.
Yeah. It's just so many great places to just show around the world. My particular favorite is White Lotus, just because I love anything that shows luxury resorts in great locations. I'm in. I'm in for sure. You can't deny that. I'm wondering, have any of you guys ever, kind of planned a travel destination, planned a trip, and then got there and kind of threw it all up in the air and said, I'm going to do something different now. I just decided once I'm here, I want to take different tours or go to different cities than I planned. Anything like that?
I have one. I was backpacking in Asia, and at the time was sort of the beginning of Twitter, and I wasn't really sure, did Twitter do anything? And Alex Jimenez, who now owns the Women's Travel Fest conference, she tweeted me in Thailand, and she asked me to come where she was in Koh Samui to interview me for her site, Travel Fashion Girl. And so that was the very first time I felt like Twitter did something. Like someone reached out to me in the travel space, and we ended up having the best time. And she was working with a whole bunch of other tech travel people in Koh Samui. And one of the guys that lived with her became my first tech, I called him the tech wizard. And he helped my website, We Said Go Travel, so much. I'm still in touch with him. Next month when I'm in Ireland, I'm going to see him, but I've known him since 2012. And that's all
Wow.
because Alex tweeted me.
You never know. What a small world. What about you, Linda and Jen? Ever just gone someplace, had a plan, and then just tore up the plan once you got there?
I've had it happen against my will.
Uh-oh.
When I got to, and this story's in my 12 Trips in 12 Months book, but when I got to Mexico, I initially intended to go there to swim with whale sharks. Again, I go for a specific reason because of a specific thing I want to do. And so whale sharks, again, this very seasonal thing that only happens pretty much during the summer months in Mexico and only in a specific location. And even then, like, you have to be lucky with going out on that particular day. So when I arrived, there was a storm that was there the day that I got there, and that was leaving the day that I left. So basically, all of the days that I had there were a wash for doing this. All of the whale shark diving tours were canceled. And so I had to find something else to do with my time in Mexico. And that's how I ended up actually scuba diving the underwater museum. So that was I had a mini PADI certification. I managed to go down. I got pictures with me in a Volkswagen underwater, but that was most definitely not my intention. And it all worked out because I was determined to make it work out. And so I was like, I'm just going to find somewhere and keep calling until somebody answers the phone, which is tough to do because Mexico is, heavy tourism. So when they have rain, that's their only break. It's not Christmas, it's not like it's when it rains and the tourists can't come out, like then they can finally relax. So nobody was answering the phone. And it did work out for me, but definitely was not my intended itinerary at all.
Wow.
Well, on that front, I haven't really gone someplace and changed my whole plan. But when I went to Australia, I was with a company, Overseas Adventure Travel, hosted me. Again, I love that company. And after being with them, I jumped ship and went to Tasmania on my own. So usually what I do is have a week of solo travel after I've been with a company. And that way I can go back and visit. And I don't have it planned. I just do a free fall after I've had an overview. And then I have lots of really fun discoveries, and I just sort of let it happen, for a week or so on my own dime. And that gives me a more personal experience. And I love to explore. So, and I do research before I go. So I have some clue of what I don't want to miss. But I don't try to do everything. I think that's a mistake to try to cram too much into a week or two that you might have in any given place.
Great. And then before we wrap up, I just kind of really quickly want to go back to all of you guys and just kind of what advice would you give to people who would love to do what you've done, write a successful travel book?
Well, you start with articles, and there's a million opportunities online. You can get your clips, and then, you find your niche. And then you go to publicists, PRs for companies and so on, and you show them what you can do for them because they don't care about you. They want to know, what can that person do for me? So I think you need to approach it as a business. Lisa and Jen know this for sure. And they do an incredible job being entrepreneurial in this situation. But I think that would be the beginning, the start.
What about you, Jen? What kind of advice would you offer to aspiring travel authors?
Well, when we're talking about being an author particularly, it means that you're probably trying to get a book deal. And so if that's the case, a lot of people go about this by blindly pitching agents. So they just go, they find the list of agents, they compile 100 plus, and then they go down the list sending emails to those agents, and then they cross their fingers that their materials are going to be worthy enough to get a response. And I think that puts a lot of pressure on people because it sometimes isn't about you at all. It could be just the fact that you are sending something into obscurity. It's same thing if you were to be pitching a travel article and you're pitching the general pitches@gmail.com inbox instead of the editor themselves. And so I think it's really important because what we do is still in a field that requires personal connections. That's why a lot of people end up finding agents from recommendations, For me, I didn't have, friends that were necessarily in this space. Now I do. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Linda, for being my new friends in this space. But I think in general, what I did was I went to the Writer's Digest conference and I paid extra for the pitch slam. And the pitch slam was a special part of that conference where I was designated to meet with 8 agents that were interested in representing travel memoirs. And that day they were meeting with me and maybe 10 other people. So I have a much better chance of standing out because it's much less competition. It's face-to-face interaction. And now you see me as a human as opposed to one more submission in your bulk submission inbox. So I think you just have to do what you need to put yourself out there. I was at a keynote once and I saw somebody that had a TV show and she mentioned how she pushed herself to get into this conference that she wasn't invited to go and talk to the person, that does that show. And sometimes that connection, just doing something to take yourself out of that anonymous, not even anonymous, but just that bulk submission to be put into a face-to-face connection with someone is important. And it still carries a lot of weight. And it's going to save you so much heartbreak thinking that it's that your materials aren't worthy when it's just that you're not standing out enough.
Right. And then lastly, Lisa?
Well, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here at BookFest. And one of my recommendations would be to come to conferences like this and then make the actual connections like Jen's talking about. We've talked about today at different conferences and, working to find an agent and writing the articles. And Jen and I both have classes. I have a new class, Travel Writer 101 on Udemy. And I think that reaching out to actual people, I have people that message me on every single different platform and ask questions. And, for me, the people that blurbed my book were writers that I followed, that I made friends with, and they helped me. And I think that it's an interesting community that people really know how hard it is to get published and are really generous about helping the next generation of writers.
Well, thank you so much. We could go on forever talking about travel. As you can see, we love travel, but unfortunately, we've come to the end of our panel. And I just want to thank everybody for being part of the BookFest Fall 2024. We appreciate your participation. So stay tuned for much more fun in this free online bookish adventure.
Well, thank you so much. It's been wonderful. Thank you.